All right, my friends, dawns, dusks. Why do we do them? How do we do them? How do we settle on a color balance that makes sense? Um, when to shoot one versus the other. This is going to be a good video. A couple of you have asked about it, and I think it's a great suggestion. So we're just going to launch right into it here. Um, these are both dawn shots, shot in two separate years at the same site. Well, obviously one in the middle of winter and one in the fall, the late fall here. This bottom image was this year, and the other was in February, I think, of 2023. So, you know, two different looks, very similar times of day, similar situations, just different kind of decision making that went into kind of what we wanted to convey with each of the images. So we're going to go through both of these in a minute, but first I want to do a little bit of a step backwards and talk about dusks and dawns in general and how to strategize for them, because it's this sort of Goldilocks time that happens every day, rain or shine. And I generally say it's 35 to 45 minutes after the sun is set on a clear day. So if you have clear skies, generally at your average time of year, it might last a little longer if you're very far north in the summer, or I guess very far south in the southern hemisphere, and vice versa. In the winter, it might come a little faster, but generally it's a half an hour to 45 minutes after the sun has set. On a cloudier day, it might be closer to a half an hour after sun has set. But it's going to happen, it happens if it's raining, snowing, sunny that day, whatever it is. So it's going to happen every day. You're going to, want to be very, very ready for it. Don't be setting the dust shot up and then, analyzing your problems. You should start, getting ready for this early in the day. Know what your dust shot is going to be or two, and then, get them ready, get them styled, get them staged, get them lit, solve all the problems, and then sit there and enjoy the last part of your day with your client or with your assistant or by yourself, just enjoying watching the sun, fade, the day diminish, the night fall, and you can just click away. And once you know you have it, stay an extra 5 minutes and shoot a little longer, because your eyes are going to have adjusted to the darkness, and when you get back to your studio, you might find that you jump the gun just a little bit. So that's a tip, is always overshoot your dusk by a few minutes, and then get a few more brackets on it and come back and decide if you really did pick the right one when you're in the field. So I want to talk about a different image here, and why I chose to do this at dusk versus dawn. Okay, so I think that the most important thing to think about when analyzing kind of where you're going to shoot your dust shot from, if you have a building with multiple sides that you need to consider, is you're going to want to shoot with the kind of in the opposite direction that the sun is, either rising or falling. So here, let me bring up the map for you so that I can explain this a little better. Okay, so this is the building that I'm shooting here, Beloit College Powerhouse. Okay, I'm on this bridge here, I believe, and I'm shooting it across here. Okay, so the sun is setting somewhere here. Somewhere out here to the west, right? And I'm shooting east. So what I get you get two bonuses from shooting in the opposite direction, right? If the sun is behind your shoulder, you have both afterglow, so you have the light, kind of bright sky giving you directional light. That's kind of a really broad fill for everything. Okay, it also is going to give you glare angle on your windows if you have, or metal, or any sort of materials that need a little bit of light to be read in the correct way. You're going to have that afterglow doing it for you. It's also going to give you the added advantage of the sky behind the building getting dark before the rest of the sky, right? Because that's going to be the first part to get dark, is the sky opposite where the sun has set, or is rising. So in the morning, the west part of the sky is the darkest part of the sky. In the evening, the east part of the sky is the darkest part of the sky. So you know, to that effect, you know, you want to be almost all the time, and particularly with brick, you know, you have brick is the first material that's just going to dive to black, right? Because brick is generally not reflective. It's this sort of very matte stone. Usually it's dark. It's not always dark, but usually it's pretty dark. And without afterglow, it's just, especially when you have windows and things in the building that are going to be reflecting, you're going to have a really hard time balancing those two things. So, you know, with that in mind, right? So I have the sun setting off over my right shoulder, and I have this beautiful, you know, glow on all the brick in here, right? That's just, you can read it all really well. You can see the sort of different materials in the building. You have this beautiful field house glowing here. And the sky is this very beautiful, deep, dark, blue-green, you know, twilight color here. And you'll see what I did to this image. That's it. That's my retouching, right? This is essentially out of camera. I've taken out a couple of, here's my layer with my retouching. That's all I did for retouching, and I put a tiny little curve on it to, you know, do a little bit of color correction. I think it was a little too green, and add you know, just a little bit of lightness to some of it. But super simple. The shot is basically out of camera because I chose the right time of day to do it. So that's the reason to consider sort of, you know, at dawn, the sun would be coming up here. You know, it'd be coming up, you know, over this building, or, you know, even right over here. This sky would all be really bright, and this building would just be, you know, bricked up, for lack of a better word. It would be just very, very dark. So you're gonna have a very hard time shooting this at dawn. The other advantage to a dusk shot is that generally it's a little easier to get the building ready when you've been there all day and you had a chance to get all the blinds up and all that stuff. If it's the second day of a photo shoot, at dawn is, you know, much more possible than on the first day. Oftentimes you need to get there a full hour and a half early because you had to be there. You got to be ready 45 minutes before the sun rises, right? So important to be prepared. You know, I had all the lights on in here. We wanted to raise this door, which we did, to show that it's operable in some capacity. You know, we got everything ready. We shot the shot, and it was a beauty. So I'm going to close that one, and we can now go through the, I'm actually going to open up the raw files here, and I'm going to talk you guys through kind of how I landed on my color temperature for both of these images, and, you know, and what we're trying to convey with them. So let's jump into capture one here. So I have most of the files here. So here's, you know, super early in the morning. I've set up my camera. Here's my assistant literally unlocking the door probably. We waded out into what was, I think, like chest deep snow. Yeah, so he's heading inside to get things ready. Or maybe we had already turned on the lights in there, I guess. But yeah, he's adjusting, you know, intensities and things like that. And it happens fast, right? Here's, you know, 2 8-second exposures here that are, let's try to look for metadata. I've recently updated Capture One here and taken away some things. So 8 seconds, 8 seconds. These are literally 2 minutes and 10 seconds apart. So you can see if we look at our histogram here, which I'm just gonna hide my face for you guys. Yeah, so you can see how much the histogram has changed in between these two images there. It happens quickly, right? So, you know, now we've dropped to a 4-second exposure, and it's just as bright as our 8-second exposure was just a couple minutes earlier. Here's my pick. I've decided on that frame, and then, you know, it started to get lighter. We started to get sort of this much more filled in light. Here's some that are color balanced differently to show you sort of what it looked like to my eye, right? As the sun rose here, it was looking, you know, something like that. It was essentially time to be done with the shot and move on. So, which we did. We made one more dawn shot, and then we hurried around here down the creek for for a sunrise shot. Like we got a bald eagle flying over. It's not photoshopped in. That's the real deal. Beautiful. So, you know, let's talk about the sort of blue hour here, right? So there's this huge amount of, I'll turn this back on. There's a huge amount of, you know, wiggle room for you as an artist when you're doing a dusk shot. You can, you know, you can literally color balance the interior to white, right? If you want it to read super sterile and really like clean inside. This works really well if you're shooting a modernist, you know, library or something, and you want it to just be super cold and perfectly white inside, and then everything else is cool outside. It can be really effective sometimes when you have a ton of glass and a lot of white inside. You know, you can also go the other direction and make this thing really like just oozing, you know, this colorful, you know, warmth over the snow. In this case, you're probably, excuse me, you're probably going to want to then, you know, create a variant and go back and knock out some of that intense yellow. But, you know, that's 11,000 Kelvin versus 2,400 versus 3,200, which is what I shot it at, right? What's the deal? 3,200 roughly. Okay, so let's jump into the file here, and let's talk about what we did in post-production, and then we'll go through the second image as well, where we then, let's see here. I got this all set for you guys, and then I made it hard on myself, huh? How do we find this thing? We'll go through the other more recent dawn shot and explain why we wanted to go less blue, more, you know, dawn, sunrise sort of colors. So here is the retouching. Again, it's pretty minor. Primarily here, what I did is deal with the, I'm just gonna delete this layer, or this layer mask, and we can start again here. So what I did was I had an issue that you get in Capture One with, I had on that image you probably saw in my in the raw here, I had some highlight and shadow on it. It's actually not on this file because I probably reprocessed it, but we can probably pull it off the other one. So -70 and 30. I leaned on this thing a little bit in order to get some life out of my wood here. This is not a situation where I have a ton of afterglow, you know, or like morning dawn glow. It was just a pretty snowy, you know, morning, so everything was pretty evenly dense. So I put some clarity, a little bit of clarity and a little bit of shadow and highlight HDR on it, and you get this sort of once again, I'm going to turn off my webcam here. You get this sort of haloing around your trees, which is abhorrent, right? We don't want to. That's not natural. We don't want to see that. Okay, so what I did here with my file is, it looks like I didn't truly process it with -70 and 30. It looks like I was a little less heavy-handed than that here, but so here you go. Here's the file with no sharpening, no HDR on it. We have you know, blurry trees from where they were rocking around, but we don't have any of that haloing. So what I did is just give myself a black mask for that, and then brush it in here, right? So we can let the sky go pretty natural here. We're not trying to brighten or darken the sky. We don't have anything that we're trying to recover in our shadows and our highlights here. We just have you know, that's more of a concern for the wood and for the interior as far as the you know, you can see how much of a difference that HDR was on that file. So important to to not get super ghosty trees like they were, right? You can see when I turn it off and on how they all have this, particularly around this tree and around this tree, they have this ghostly halo around them, which is pretty bad. So there's other ways to do that. We could have we could have brushed in the areas in Capture One in the raw that we wanted to open, but I tried doing that and I felt like it was looking a little. I feel like I have a little more control when I have two entire files that I can overlay on each other and then carefully brush them back in. So above that, it was primarily just knocking out here. We had literally feet and feet of snow, and there's tops of plants sticking out of the top of them. So I did quite a bit of post-production on just knocking those out. I also see that, I don't know quite why, but I had some dust in my on my sensor up here somewhere. There's a piece there. Not sure why that happens, but every once in a while I get a piece and have to actually manually clean the old sensor. We should take this one treetop out that's been rocking and rolling in the wind. Some aspen tree that caught wind more than anything else at that moment, just because it looks a little like an artifact of something that we did, even though we didn't do anything to it, right? It's just a natural thing, but it's just funny that the one aspen tree was doing that. So beyond that, what I'm going to do is just make a I did this in both images, which is I'd like to add the illusion of a little more light coming out of this lantern, of this little jewel box of a guest house, so that it kind of feels like it's just adding a little bit of glow out into the world here. So we're just adding a little bit of blue into the parts that are already lighter, and I'm just going to lighten those up a little bit here. So it does more than you'd think, right? It just gives you a couple of leading lines, and it gives you a little bit of sense of glow here. I am going to go ahead and add a little bit of tiny bit of yellow and a little bit of red to those. Yeah, there we go. So now we have these little pools of light that are existing in some way, but we've just kind of added a little more to them. So that's pretty much it for that image. It's a simple thing. I'm going to go ahead and just go back to how it looked after I did all the retouching on it. Yeah, so that's basically all they did. Not a lot. So let's head to the next capture here, the next version of the same thing. I'll leave my camera off here and just jump over to the session for you guys and show you the raws here. So it was the other more recent rainbow trout here. Just 120 jobs in between these two or so. So here we have a similar time of day, right? It's early dawn. You can see, just a few frames before that. If we were to make this thing, cool, it would be a similar feel. But here we had a couple of different factors, okay? It was a clear day with wildfire smoke. So we had this sort of funny dawn where the sky got kind of warm. It got kind of this reddish yellow color, like a sunrise, but with no clouds, right? It had this little magenta orange tone to it, which I thought was pretty interesting. And and going to a cold is also very even light. It was very diffuse. So going to this very cold look just didn't look right to me, right? It didn't have the sort of magic that this has to it. So you can go in different directions, right, with a dawn. This is much more like the eye sees it. You have this warm inside at 2700K lighting, with this cool outside that you're kind of letting the warmth on the inside win, and balancing to that. So that's the file. Again, I'll go back to where we were setting up here. First frame, I started setting up a little closer, backed up, moved the camera apparently while I was shooting. And yeah, so here we go. We've settled into a spot. I definitely checked to see if I should, start on a colder file. I decided against it as the color started to work its way into the sky. There's the pick. The aspen trees are looking good. That's the other thing is I would hate to do any, injustice to these beautiful peak color aspen trees that we have and poplars sticking up over the house. Yeah, and then we got through that shot and moved on to the next from there. You can see it was a pretty funny day. We ended up with these weird, like you can see in the drone views, this wildfire smoke just lingering in the valleys, right? Yeah, you can see here the ridge line is all obscured by wildfire smoke. So okay, so let's jump into this shot here and let's take a look at what we did. Again, it's not a lot, right? These are exteriors. They are clean. We shot them at the right time of day, and there's just not a lot to do. So I didn't have an alt. I just had a few different layers to work with, right? So we had a couple of layers where I was lightening things. We can take a look at my masks here. Yeah, so I basically opened this whole face, this front face here, to give myself a little shape, right? I wanted to give the illusion that we had more light coming from the left than the right, rather than have the wood be all the same tone here, right? If we didn't have these windows here, this would look just like a wall. So cutting a corner in, cutting yourself a little shape into a corner, it never hurts the viewer understand a three-dimensional object, okay? Secondly, I just lightened the whole house up a little in the center. Thirdly, I did that same move that I just showed you, right? Where I opened and warmed the foreground a bit, okay? Oops, wrong one. Yeah, so there I had carved in a little bit of crisscrossing shape here. And then just a move to open my midtones, my kind of 3/4 tones, my darks here. That move might be a little heavy-handed. I don't know if it's really necessary. It might actually be better without it, but at the time I felt like I needed it. And then this is where we have that super subtle move. I probably just made this thing, 1 point of pink different. Maybe I didn't even do that. Maybe this is just a dead layer. No, I did something. Anyhow, that's about it, guys. It's not shooting things at the right time of day. Just that's it, right? I can review some of the other files from this job with you quickly, and talk about the right times of day. 7:09. Actually, you know what? It's already open. Let me sort these by the file name. So you're just seeing the raws here, on the picked raws. Okay, so a shot like this is interesting. This is an opportunistic shot, right? We grabbed this because we had this raking light on the west face. This is probably around, let's see, the thing tips very slightly, so it's probably around 1 or 2 p.m. We were kind of waiting around on light, and we saw the light raking here. I mean, it's raking enough where we have a pretty deep shadow just from this tiny little dripping lip here. So yeah, it's pretty evenly raking. Again, we can find the final picture here, and we'll see what I actually did to I'm guessing it's this one. We can see what I actually did to the image. I'm sure it's just a little bit of cleanup, right? Yeah, there you go. Oh, I just cut a little bit more shape into that thing, and then I lengthened this little artifact here of the architecture, where this is actually a window, and it ended right there, but for composition reasons I wanted it to continue. So yeah, small things, shooting things at the right time of the day, it's the most important, right? Dawn, early twilight, whatever you want to call that, first light. We have this dappled light pouring through the trees here. It was a tricky shoot. It's wildfire smoke, right? You've got this beautiful ridge line back here that's just falling away. So So yeah, you guys, that's going to be a shorter video this week. Dusk shots, how to make them. It's fun. They're some of my favorite things. They're polarizing. Some people don't like them because they don't feel they really represent the architecture. I believe that we're all cave people in the end of the day, and all we want to do is get back from the darkness into the warmth of the fire in our cave, and seeing the entry to the cave glowing orange and knowing it's warm and safe in there. I think that's somewhere deep inside all of our souls that we just want to get back to our fire, and lay down. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So thank you for your time. It's been fun making these. I'll keep them coming. Keep the ideas coming too. I love them. So thank you. Good night.